a great breakthrough. And, Tobias was talking, too. Tobias, you were mentioning, the fact that, not everything is equal. I mean,
Right.
he was telling me, not all green tea is equal. You might go to Walmart and pick you up some green tea. Is that going to be the same kind you use?
Yeah, very different.
It's very different. So, going to a health food store and picking up a remedy, when I say, for example, go get some milk thistle for the liver, it may not work if you get it because from Walmart, say, for example, or somewhere, quote, cheap, because there are 5 grades. There are different grades of herb. And it goes A through D. D being the worst, A being the best. The D grades all get bought up by our cheap purveyors of health called Walmart. And that category, D grade, has to be more than 5 years old when they get it and 25% dirt. Now, you've heard me talk about that before. So anyway, let's move on. Hey, one of the reasons why, Tobias, we're really interested in community isn't because we're worried about the shot across the bow and the fact that the sun's going to flare, and when this next solar cycle peaks, we're going to get our hair singed because the sun's going to torch us a new haircut, which, by the way, might and could happen. If at least it doesn't do that, there's a great possibility that the event that happened 150 years ago on this planet, where there was a huge solar storm, well, today it'd just wipe us out electronically. I mean, it'd be over. Our power grid would go down, the control mechanisms for everything. Now, we're not talking about just blackouts here and there. We're talking about restarting. Do you know how long it takes to restart something? When you've got electricity already going, you have to kind of get another machine that has electricity in it to jumpstart you. Let me give you an example. If your car battery dies, you go get a jumper cable. Why do you do that? Because you're going to go to another car that has electricity to jumpstart you. Well, what if you're in the end of the world and you're the last man alive and you're driving a car and the car battery dies? You got to get back before midnight because you're in a movie where the zombies come out at night, but your car battery dies and there isn't any other way to get your car started without jumping, but you're in the last car. Well, that's kind of how it is when the power grid goes down. If it goes down, well, we don't have anything to jump start us. So we have to, everything manufactured is in place. We're going to have to replace all the microcircuits and all the computer control systems and so forth and so on. And then if there's any damage to some of the systems physically, like we might have to hang new wires and so forth. And so there might be some rebuilding that has to go on. But then you might have to go get a bunch of guys and they have to be on a squirrel cage and they have to start pedaling bicycles and hook them up to the power grid so we can jump start the generators and get them turned back on, so to speak. Now, if we have water coming over a waterfall, it's right there. We just have to repair everything. But that could take a considerable amount of time. So I'm not talking about those kind of events. What I'm talking about, what I'd like to talk about, is our economic environment. And let's back up. Obama in America has just announced that he wants the banks to pay back the loan America gave him. Well, guess what? Yesterday, I was talking to a fellow that's going to be on next week. His name's Jeff Bennett. He's an expert in this. And I was talking to him today, and he said that yesterday he just found out the banks have already paid back the bailout. Now, that's pretty interesting, folks. Did you know that had happened? Also, guess what? those that haven't paid back the bailout isn't the banks. Now, who would that be? How about AIG? How about General Motors? And, of course, the list goes on. Those people haven't. Well, how did the banks pay us back? Well, hey, how couldn't they pay us back? They can make money out of thin air. Well, actually, they don't make it. How does it work? The Federal Reserve is given the currency by paying for the cost of printing it. So how does that work? The United States government has the mint, and it gets the paper and all the basic supplies in, and it manufactures these things called dollar bills. And that dollar bill or $100 bill doesn't make any difference whether it's a 1 or 100. When it gets printed, it costs a few cents, 2 to 3 or 4 cents, something like that. I can't remember now. Maybe, who knows? But it's a few cents. That's all. And so then that piece of paper called a $100 bill is sold to the Federal Reserve for the few cents that it costs to make it. With what? If the Federal Reserve doesn't have money to start with and we've given them this money, how are they going to pay us? Well, that's first question. The second question is, guess what they do? The Federal Reserve then turns around and gives us the money back. But here's the kicker. They don't charge us 2 or 3 cents per bill. If it's a $100 bill, they give it back to us at the face value of $100, and now the United States owes the Federal Reserve the difference between the 2 cents and the $100, plus interest. Now, is that absurd or what? So, when you have a system of economics based on being in debt like that, it's like, Tobias, let me tell you, I'm glad you're on today because I get to use you. Let's say I walk up to you and say, hey, Tobias, you owe me $100. And you go, I do? And you go, well, sure. I gave you, that 2-cent piece of paper I gave you?
Right. I remember.
Guess what? I paid you 2 cents, but you owe me $100 back. Oh, well, that's nice. Doc, I didn't know. I mean, it's shock. You out of thin air, I have created this liability, and you had no clue. So that's exactly what we've done. We have taken upon us a debt system that on its face fundamentally is a debt. It starts off as a debt. And really, that's not what money's for. Money is a vehicle to help enhance our ability as people to exchange our energy with each other. Now, the energy can come in the form of an apple pie, or it can come in the form of my lawn getting mowed, or it can come in the form of my teeth getting fixed, or my house having a new deck put on it. But that takes energy. So in order for that energy to flow back and forth between us, we put it in the form of a currency so that it exchanges freely back and forth. And really, if I walked over to let's say we're in a community, Tobias, and I was, we're close by each other, and we're looking at the community garden out between all the buildings, and you're over in your very nice home. I don't, it doesn't make a difference how big or anything. It's just comfortable. Right. And I see that you're struggling to get maybe a building, a shed made, and you're trying to slide the 2x4s or 2x6s on the roof or up above, and you're